As history will tell any horror fan or cinephile, Stephen King adaptations run the gamut from excellent, such as The Shining, which he hated at the time, to downright terrible, such as Maximum Overdrive, which he directed himself. As is often said, cocaine is one hell of a drug. Of course, these adaptations have been happening for decades at this point, so there's bound to be a bit of uneven quality here and there. And this unevenness brings us to today's entry. A movie with heavy hitters like Timothy Olyphant and Morgan Freeman, yet centered around the horrors of alien ass worms and the kind of quality CGI you'd expect in the late 90s on TV. Today on Awfully Good, we're diving into the butt of Stephen King's Dreamcatcher. Now, this movie is all over the place, so let's dive right into this story. Dreamcatcher starts with Thomas Jane as Henry, working as a therapist or psychiatrist. Dreamcatcher isn't here to give us any character building details like that, so who knows. He's with a patient with some significant issues he's trying to work through. Talks to said patient about a thing he could not possibly know.
You weren't there. How could you know what happened? You're looking in my head! Stop it!
But how does he know this? How can he possibly know what someone is thinking? The patient storms off, he pulls a gun, and almost offs himself. But we aren't so lucky. We've still got 2 hours left of this bullshit.
Hey, H, you know, I was thinking if you were free this weekend, we might go see Duddits.
Played by Donnie Wahlberg. Or I guess we can call him Mr. McCarthy now? I don't really know. Duddits is a childhood friend they haven't seen in a very long time. Jonesy, played by Damian Lewis, then meets with a student who knows things about him that there is no way he could possibly know. And so a pattern emerges. That's when we switch over to a car salesman, Pete, played by the always great Timothy Olyphant. Long live Seth Bullock.
I will beat you here in the street.
Who greets a woman who has lost her car keys. He helps her find these keys in a way that doesn't entirely make sense, because Dreamcatcher likes to take its time. We then cut to Beaver, who's played by Jason Lee, and he's calling Jonesy. Uh-oh, something is afoot and he needs to warn him. Jonesy leaves his office and sees that a kid is warning him of something. Oh, well, he gets hit by a car. Is this funny? Yes. Yes, it is. And so things do take a little bit of an upturn. Maybe Dreamcatcher has hope? Maybe every single one of these guys is gonna get hit by a random car? In the ambulance ride, he sees the kid again. Perhaps he'll be alright. Nope, that doesn't matter. Flash forward to 6 months later. They meet in a cabin they seem to co-own to relax and hang out. Nothing ever goes wrong in a desolate cabin, right? Especially in the winter. Best to cozy up and maybe read something nice and calm from the fruit cellar. There they make food, talk, drink, joke around, and make some funny off-color comments.
You won't believe it. You dropped that little blue bomb, your heart is a Louisville Slugger for 12 hours.
Their friendship status is established for the audience. We get a little bit of dinner talk, and then the concept of the memory warehouse is explained. Now, this is pretty important for the rest of the movie, but it feels like an awkward one-off as it's presented here. We then get a childhood flashback that shows them as boys saving Duddits from bullies, giving him his dignity back and treating him as a human, and not some kid to be made fun of, because of his intellectual difference. Something is indeed different about Duddits, but what exactly it is not clear. Then we go to some time later where Jonesy takes in a man who he found in the forest down to the cabin. Wait, what? He did what? Why the fuck would you do that? Does murder not exist in this world? And unsurprisingly, this is where the horror starts. The man starts burping and farting abnormally. Side note, this is such a strange movie and plays things so razor straight, yet we turn up the dramatic tension with farts.
Just tired, that's all.
Well done, guys. Well done. Meanwhile, Pete and Henry are coming back from the market and crash while trying to avoid hitting a woman on the road. She survives, but something doesn't seem quite right about her.
Hello!
Pete stays behind as he has a broken leg, and Henry treks back to the cabin. Basically, the proverbial shit is hitting the fan. You see the pattern? Soon the military enters the picture because there's not enough going on in this, and announces a quarantine. Back to the cabin, the man is in the bathroom seemingly having a similar experience to Jeff Daniels in Dumb and Dumber. Jonesy and Beaver decide to enter, and something is more than clearly wrong. Enter the shit monster. No, not that one. But can we raise a drink to the man himself, Bill Paxton? I wish this shit monster was here instead.
Quit screwing around!
No, this is meant to be a serious creature that was created, screened, and made it through to the final edit. And yes, your confusion is correct. We are not watching a sci-fi comedy. The man dies and Beaver tries to keep the monster contained. Jonesy goes to get duct tape and they fight with the beast. And Beaver is just out for the count, dead on the scene. A much larger being is in the cabin. It turns into spores and invades Jonesy, which becomes Mr. Gray's host. Remember that name, Mr. Gray. Again, you'd be right if that sounded like a play-by-play of a comedy. Then we get more military, and things are not good for the locals. There's a lot of talk going on here, and most people are going to check out during this. However, at least Morgan Freeman is entertaining. He's hamming it up. Back to Pete, the Pete Sickle. Heh, you see what I did there? Rim shot all the way, baby. He's in the woods with a farting woman.
Lord, I will never drink again.
He eventually meets the shit monster himself and gets attacked. Fire seems to help, but not forever. Henry gets to the cabin and somewhat meets Mr. Gray, who then goes out and finds Pete. While in the house, Henry has some visions, sees Beaver, then realizes what must be done. Sets fire to the red spores and the baby shit monsters. But hey, what do we need at this point? Oh, another flashback! Well, thank God, now we get to figure out how they got these powers in the first place. The thing that was aggressively hinted at throughout the movie, and we find out that they found a missing girl, forever bonding them in their childhood town of Derry. Wait, Derry? Yep, it's a King story, alright. Back at the military base, we learn that the aliens can broadcast into people's heads, which I guess is somewhat useful. I mean, Jim Carrey's Riddler pulled it off and it seemed to work pretty well. At least there we get the addition of some bright colors and a sweet jumpsuit. The military does as expected in a movie and shoots them, losing some of their own, then retreating. Back to our boys, Pete gets dispatched. Aw, no more Oliphant. Sad. Mr. Gray hits the road, he kills a few, gets a dog to incubate a shit monster, and tries to head out to Boston. Henry gets picked up by the military, and we come to the realization that this movie is too goddamn long. Tom Sizemore's character, oh, hello Tom Sizemore,
We slip into a room and you two split me open like a coconut.
has a conscience and decides to help out Henry and get Duddits. We see Duddits' mom send him off knowing that he won't come back. Possibly the only emotional scene in the entire movie. But I mean, hey, in a movie with shit monsters, is that really surprising? Everyone converges in Boston where Mr. Gray wants to put a shit monster in and take over the city. Duddits shows his true form.
I'm Duddits.
I really wish I were joking about that. And kills Mr. Gray, who is no longer inside Jonesy, and dies in the process. Jonesy kills the shit monster. Roll credits with that shitty music. Pun absolutely intended. Oh, that was a lot. So, well, what was the verdict here? Well, this sucks. Like, a lot. But it's not all bad, I guess. I would consider it very average, and depending on your state's current marijuana legalization status, could probably be pretty entertaining, if not for the shit monsters alone. There's a bit of entertainment to be had here, but most of it for the wrong reasons, and it feels way too long. For Christ's sake, I thought this thing could have wrapped itself up 20 minutes prior. The shit monsters are just kinda goofy, kinda funny, not all that scary. It's still bizarre that one of the more significant threats was a serious Mr. Hanky. Unfortunately, they're all CGI along with the aliens, so they all look a bit off. CGI just wasn't good at this time. None of them feel like they're even real. The performances from the cast are decent. I mean, Morgan Freeman chews on some scenery, and Timothy Olyphant looks like he's having some sort of sarcastic fun. Jason Lee has that Mallrats charm, then Thomas Jane, Damian Lewis, and Tom Sizemore take their parts seriously and do decent work with the material given. The main person we need to talk about is Donnie Wahlberg, aka The Cheese. His work here is interesting. Originally coming off rather good as Adult Duddits, but now it's a bit off. This movie could be fun to watch in a cabin with a few completely paranoid friends and some substances. Or it can be turned into a drinking game, so let's get into that. The Lightweight. Same shit, different day.
SSDD?
This line shows up several times, and you should be taking a sip of your beer every time it does. Hold my beer. Dreamcatchers everywhere! Take a sip of beer every time you see a Dreamcatcher on the screen. Finish that beer when they mention Dreamcatcher by name.
What's that?
It's a Dreamcatcher.
You may want to go with a low alcohol per volume beer for this one, because it happens a lot. It's King's World. Take a shot every time there is a mention or reference to Stephen King's literary or cinematic universe. You know, dairy, clowns, the Dizzy Maker. Drink of choice, take a swig every time they use their fingers to make those twirly things that look a bit like the tunnels in Donnie Darko. To go with those drinks, a fun game of film trivia can be added to this. Something quite fitting given the film. So here's our trivia bits for Dreamcatcher. The film scored a 28% Rotten rating with critics on Rotten Tomatoes. Directed by Lawrence Kasdan, the man behind such films as Wyatt Earp, The Big Chill, and of course Star Wars Episodes 5 and 6. Stephen King sold the movie rights to this film for just $1, which could make it a part of the Dollar Babies. But those are usually student films. You know, low budget adaptations, and not exactly big Hollywood productions. The original ending did not have Duddits turning into an alien, but rather he defeated Mr. Grey with his powers, and then died of leukemia. This can be found on the DVD release of the film. Morgan Freeman received top billing for this, but only gets 40 minutes of screen time. The song Blue Bayou appears in a few scenes and was sung in the alternate ending. With all that said, why is this awfully good? Well, I mean, the film sucks, but it kind of doesn't if you can be in the right state of mind. The effects have not aged well at all, and some of the action is rather questionable, and there is some serious hamming it up at times by Morgan Freeman and a few others. The film's tone is all over the place, and the editing makes it feel extra long in places where it should feel tight. But it does reach a few highs of so bad it's good, and I was able to laugh, albeit unintentionally, more than a few times. So overall, on a scale from Victor Salva to Roger Corman, I'm giving this bad boy a 5 out of 10. What films do you want to see us cover on the next Awfully Good? List them down below and we'll see you in the next episode.
I did it!